another We Talk Chelsea podcast. Three exceptionally amateur football players united through a love of Chelsea Football Club. And the more things change, the more they stay the same. With 14 players out the door and 12 incoming to replace them, Chelsea still can't steam to put the ball in the back of the net despite dominant bounce of possession. Forest set the low block and set their attack to counter, and they left Stamford Bridge with all 3 points, leaving Chelsea sitting in an all too familiar 12th place. Timber. It just feels a bit like Groundhog Day. We're talking about Chelsea having dominant bouts possession, and it's the same thing week in, week out. We just can't seem to put the ball in the back of the net, can we?
No, and it's a huge issue, like I mentioned. I just don't see where the goals come from. I know we've talked about how this is our easiest run of games going forward. You know, we had Forest, Luton, Bournemouth coming up, and Villa. And in terms of that run up, I think to the start of the season, there couldn't be a sort of run of games where we could have, picked up some momentum and maybe pushed forward towards harder fixtures coming in October and November. I think we have quite a hard sequence till pretty much January. So it was kind of crucial to get some points. Otherwise, it's kind of the same as last season. I dread to say.
Yeah, it's not looking good, especially when you look at the run of games that we have post the 7th of October, which is Burnley away, and even then, not many clubs want to go there currently at the moment. But Chelsea, Arsenal, Chelsea, Brentford, Tottenham, Chelsea, Chelsea City, Newcastle away, Brighton at home, Man United away, Everton away, which we always seem to lose at, regardless of how well Everton are doing. And then we go back to the teams that are considered the lower teams. But we have got a very tough run of games, and these games that we're playing now, they're the games you need to put points on the board. Let's face it, because I don't think even now. I don't think we're as strong as teams like Tottenham look at the moment, which is scary because Tottenham haven't. They've sold their best player. Do you know, it's
Yeah.
crazy. They sold their best player and they're playing better. Like how does this work out? How are we still talking about the exact same things at this point? Almost 6 months later, it's unfathomable. Like I think one thing we need to digest really is how things are looking different. I think we need to look at kind of like Pochettino, and we need to review this game properly, really, because it's the same thing as usual. We're very quick out the blocks. We dominate possession. The problem is we just can't seem to get a shot on target. I think we didn't register a shot on target to the very last um, few minutes of the first half. It was just poor once again, and it leads to discussions about whether we have exactly what we need. Because we're looking very, very lopsided. And I don't know about you, Temba, but to me, Ben Chilwell just isn't an out-and-out left winger, is he?
Yeah. I think you perfectly summed up everything we're pretty much having an issue with. The sort of playing the 3-4 centre backs, or no, three centre backs. Sorry, with the lopsided sort of come together three, and then a right back with a right mid and a left winger without a left back. It's kind of very one-sided, and it shows you like all of our attacks. Most of the players, most of our touches is actually Gusto, and most of our attacks came subsequently on the right. So if you're a low block team, if you close off that side, all you've got to watch out for maybe is the back post run on the left side, and even if the delivery is good enough. Obviously, we know Reece James usually is the player for that, but then again, he's been injured a lot of the time, so it's not good to rely on one player to get you out of situations as we've seen. And even when he was fit, he wasn't playing well. So it's still an issue of you need to have threats coming down both sides. It was something that I saw Man City do against Fulham. They weren't having any joy with Doku and Foden, and they both switched wings and subsequently got more touches on the ball that way. Whereas us, we're very stuck in our ways of playing Chilwell. And the thing is, he didn't even bring it. I'm sure Mudryk only came on for the last 10 minutes. So again, it just shows like this kind of stubbornness I didn't really want to see from Pochettino with persisting with Chilwell at left wing. I kind of feel sorry for him because he has been getting a lot of criticism for his bad performances. But at the end of the day, he hasn't got the skill set to tightly dribble past players or pick and then pass out. We know what Chilwell's strengths are: getting on the end of a ball and striking it, and being aerially dominant. I don't think he's the greatest defensively, but
No.
he has got a workhorse engine in him. He will get back up and down that pitch. But again, the abilities you need for a winger, I think you need an eye for a pass, or very good at dribbling, or very good at getting the ball out your feet and then striking the ball. And with him playing on the left hand side, he's sort of cutting across goal all the time, having to shoot anyway. So I don't know. It's just not ideal for me. I don't know if you can add any more to that.
Yeah, I just feel like the overall balance of the squad is very skewed because all of our attacks, all of our successful attacks, I say this when we have opportunities because we create chances. We do.
Yeah,
They're not just half chances like a swipe from like 18 yards out. We create chances, but they're all coming from the right side. Sterling is continuing to play very, very well. Gusto has come in and he's performed very, very well. I thought he had one of his better games since joining the club against Forest. He was bodying players off the ball, winning the ball. He kind of looked a bit like a very perfect kind of not replacement for James when he's fit, but a very good understudy because like
yeah,
James when he's on form is world class. The problem is he's not on form very often because he spends too many time in the treatment room. Let's face it.
yeah,
Um, it's too lopsided at the moment, and I mean, I think one thing that I don't know if you saw the online kind of criticisms of Thiago Silva in this scenario. There was a fan that probably put something. I think it's like an Instagram page. I think I can't remember what it's called, but they were talking about how is it time to drop Thiago Silva because they feel like the squad's being put in to accommodate for Thiago Silva, and do you know what the thought run past my head? But if that could be the case, and I think I've discussed this on the pod before that he's a Rolls Royce player. He's a very good player. He's undoubtedly one of the best defenders in the last 20 years. Let's face it. And I get the thought coming across my mind, but the problem is that it isn't Thiago Silva. It's the overall kind of tactics. It's playing Ben Chilwell as a left winger when he's not a left winger, which is
yeah,
forcing Levi Colwill to play as a left back, which is leaving him exposed, which is putting a lot of pressure on a young player. You want him to feel really adjusted. Is this the
yeah,
time to kind of go to a proper four at the back as opposed to we play it a four at the back anyway? When we're in attack because Chilwell's bombing up. It is this time to actually say, do you know what? Chilwell left back, Colwill, Silva or Disasi, depending on who's available. Balashile is close to regaining full fitness. I think he should be back to fitness over the international break. And then either James or Gusto on that right side. Do we need to go to an established four at the back? Because that's how we have been playing in pre-season and we were doing it to good effect.
yeah. I was just a bit flabbergasted the fact that we kind of changed everything we did from preseason. I thought we looked good, and maybe Nkunku's a big reason why, um, and Carney as well. But then again, he played this against Liverpool. I think it worked against Liverpool because isolating their fullbacks maybe and whipping balls in early kind of worked against them. But
Hmm.
I think in terms of doing a four, it works against teams that sit back. And I'm kind of dreading playing against Bournemouth and especially Aston Villa. I think this is the way we're playing right now, tailor
Hmm.
made for teams like that to win against us, especially Aston Villa. I don't know if you remember last season where they weren't good. They weren't good in terms of attacking. I think we played right into their hands. We had several chances to score. We created quite a few chances, but famously the Mudryk one where he passed it straight into Emi Martinez's hands. There's chances like that you've got to take. You've got to be lethal, and you've got to get an early goal because once you teams like that score first, they'll easily just sort of set up shop, and they know you can't break them down, and they'll catch you on the counter, which is exactly what they did. And notoriously, we've always been bad at Bournemouth away. I think it's just a cursed ground where we seem to lose all the time. So
Yeah.
even there, I can't see where the 3 points come from. But yeah, we've definitely got to change to a back four. I think maybe put
It just
left.
it just it
Yeah.
just doesn't make sense, especially when you're playing against teams against Forest that are going to set up a low block, playing an extra defender in the grand
Mhm.
scheme of things. Like, why don't you play an out and out established attacker? Like even if it was Mudryk, do you know what I mean? That came in and started the game. Like I'm personally not a massive fan of Michaela Mudryk. I don't think I've seen enough to justify the spend on him so far. I'm not seeing a return on that. Other than the goal at pre-season, I don't understand fans clamouring for Mudryk to start games, because when he does, or when he does come on, he's largely ineffectual.
Yeah,
Um, but there's other players that could come in that position, like Ian Maitson has played it fantastically in pre-season. He's got a good link-up play with Nicolas Jackson in those pre-season games. Why don't they use that? Why don't they use Maitson as a left winger and then having Chilwell sit back? It just put. I know Maitson's considered a left back per se, but he isn't. He's the ability to play as right wing as well. He played at number 10 against Wimbledon as well. Why aren't we playing these? Why aren't we playing these attackers? They're the games you need to get goals. So throw more men forward. We shouldn't be too passive in that scenario. Yes, we know we're going to be open to the counter attack, but that's why you brought Caicedo in, surely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally agree. I mean, I think even players, that's the thing. When you have so many young players like this, they need game time. I think, obviously, Chilwell, he's got a lot of experience, so maybe that's why he's in there in the starting 11,
Mm.
because this is a relatively young squad. And if you remember Poch in preseason, he did mention about the lack of actual experience in this team. So I think him and Silva being in the starting 11 is a big part of it, and Raheem Sterling, of course. Um,
Mm.
because if you look at it, otherwise it is maybe a team that's quite young. Enzo, I believe, hasn't played that much football professionally. I think he was at
I think
Benfica, and
he's still less than like he was only yeah he was only at Benfica for half a season, but I think he's still on less than like 100 first team games or something like that. So he's still relatively new to first team football. I'll have to double check going onto Wikipedia, but yeah, it's still not a lot of appearances just yet.
yeah, but even so, he obviously he can control a game like no other. I think everything runs through him. Um, he's a great player in terms of controlling the tempo, but he does need help in that scenario. I think having Chilwell to be one of the players where he dictates off it isn't the right thing, because if you look at the way Jackson plays, he likes to drop off a lot and find the half spaces, and with that you need someone who's then going to sort of either let Jackson stop dropping off so deep, come collect the ball deep, and play through to Jackson.
Mm.
Whereas, it's Enzo a lot of the time where he's having to beat maybe three or four players to play that perfect pass. So in a
Yeah,
sense where Carney or Nkunku would have been playing is something we quite need actually. So yeah, it's
I mean,
it's a strange one. I don't think we could truly understand what Pochettino is thinking, to be honest. But again, we can only judge from the outside.
yeah, I mean, let's talk about Jackson. Initially when he was signed, I think, kind of flew under the radar. Not many people had heard of him. I personally had not heard of him, other than I think Charlie mentioned, who's missing this week's podcast. He mentioned he failed a deadline day medical across through to Bournemouth in the January transfer window. But he's come in,
Yeah,
he's looked very, very lively. He had that link up play with Maitson. He does look lively. He looks like he wants to be involved. He looks interested. He looks like he wants to receive the ball. He's willing to work hard for the team. But it's just that curse again of that player like playing in the number 9 role for Chelsea. It just can't seem to get the ball in the net, and it's that Jackson chance from less than 6 yards out. That is a goal you need to be scoring. You need to be scoring that goal. I mean, people can say, yeah, he's on the stretch a little bit, but if you look at the footage back, I can't remember which Nottingham Forest defender it was, but the Nottingham Forest defender had lost their balance. I think it was Willy Bowley, and he was falling down anyway, so he wasn't going to make that ball regardless. So he had time to run onto that ball. There should be, I think, in that scenario, things like that need to be kind of second nature, which begs the question: are we going to go? I mean, I don't know. Did you? I think you mentioned prior to the podcast with regards to the Chelsea's links to Ivan Toney. I don't know if that's something you want to elaborate on for the benefit of the people that might not have heard this. For Ivan Toney potentially, or Chelsea looking at Ivan Toney as a potential January signing.
yeah. So in terms of Ivan Toney, he's been linked to us as January, as Nizar Kinsella said, for £80 million, and I think it would be a brilliant signing because we need someone like that up front. We don't have a target man. I think we need that. Nicolas Jackson's prolifically bad in the air, very, very bad. So again, it gives us a different option, especially if you're desperate as we are, where we just resort to crossing the ball all the time.
Yeah,
Who's going to get those chances in at the end of the day? Uh, we don't really throw our centre backs in the box either, so he you can't rely on Madueke or Sterling to get on the end of high crosses. So
yeah,
yeah, in the sense of that. I think Tony would be an ideal player. But for
yeah.
£80 million, would Chelsea entertain that?
It's a lot of money, but if you look at the market, it's whether we can justify the spend, because people have been like, oh, Chelsea spent £1 billion. Well, they have, yes, but they've also recouped a lot of that as well. So in the grand scheme of things, like the net spend, I think it's something like 550. Like, it's a lot. I'm not saying it isn't a lot, but it's not the billion that we recouped some of those costs. But Ivan Toney, I think if you're gonna, the problem that we have is we spent so much money on strikers in the last few years, and none of them have worked out. The last good striker Chelsea had was Diego Costa. That's
Yeah,
6, 7 years ago, and we've not filled that position. And But think of the players that have been and come to the club. Like, you look at the like Alexandra Pato, you look at Falcao, you look at Morata, you look at Higuain. All players that scored so many goals in the number 9 position in other leagues, but struggle at Chelsea, and I can't seem to fathom as to why that is. Because it's not exactly we don't create chances. Like, what happens? Like, they're different. It's different ownership, different managers each time. But why does that problem remain the same? Is the pressure? Is there an unspoken pressure around the club as a whole in that position? Because I would personally like to see Nicolas Jackson move it onto the left side instead, and play as a left winger, which he has capability to do so, and have an out and out number 9 in the middle. Um, to be in the box, because so many times I saw the cross being made across the box and there's nobody there. There's
yeah,
nobody there, and you need that kind of poacher, that kind of Ruud van Nistelrooy style poacher in the early 2000s that like is only going to score goals in the 18-yard box. You just need it, and we're really, really lacking. And I'm very hesitant to go and spend 80 million and then kind of ruin Ivan Toney as a player, like, long term, because we've got such a bad history for it. But I would love to see him if he brought his Brentford form to Chelsea and he get more chances. It gives Chelsea the opportunity, like you said, to target man. We can play counter-attacking football. We can launch the ball up to him. He can head it, chest it, get it down, and bring the wingers into play. Release Sterling, release Madueke, and
hmm
yeah, I would personally really, really like to see it. I was a bit hesitant based on his Diary of a CEO interview, just in terms of attitude of the player.
yeah.
But sometimes you need that type. You need a bit of a.
Ego,
Yeah,
yeah,
you need an
character,
ego at that level. You need
yeah,
you need somebody that's going to be a bit selfish and take the shot. That you need to take the shot. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. And it's kind of a thing where I kind of feel sorry for Jackson in a sense. I think he does everything perfectly, everything right. He takes defenders away, he drags the ball, he can hold it up, he can link up play. It's just that final touch, and I don't know if that's really down to him or is it down to the fact that we just, he when he's lacking service, he decides to drop deep a lot and come to us, come towards the ball. Sorry, and you know, um, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. Chelsea have always been, I think, notoriously a team that's played well with a hold-up striker. So maybe Ivan Toney is the answer. I think other strikers we've struggled to adapt to their game, maybe not got the best out of them, and
Mm.
it's sort of a sense of even us as an attacking team. We've notoriously not been very good as an attacking team. Our best seasons have always come where we've shored up defensively and sort of played a rigid style. Hard to beat,
Mm.
and then worry about our defense first, then go forward. Whereas I think when we've become a more expansive team, every time we've been found out, and we just haven't shown the kind of form that we're used to us seeing at Chelsea at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, do you
Yeah.
remember
So
when we last won the league under Conte? The season before we shipped goals. We properly
yeah.
shipped goals in that season, and then
Mhm.
Conte came in. We missed out on Europe, um, and then Conte came, shored up the defense, and all of a sudden we were running. Nobody had us favourites to win the league, and we went in and we won the league. But last season we shored up defence. Like we were one of the top defensive players. We just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. It's just it's it's just crazy to think just how why it's the same problems. We are so many managers in, we are completely new squad, and we're still having these same issues. But I put it out to the chat, like people are watching us now. If you're joining us, please thank you very much for joining us. If you have the opportunity and haven't done so already, please hit subscribe. We are trying to get to 100 subscribers. We greatly appreciate if you joining us on when you join us on TKS TV, greatly appreciate you joining us there as well. So if you can hit subscribe, please help us out. Please, if you're in the chat, if you got that there, please put your suggestions for strikers that would be available. Like even if you like Chelsea can't spend 80 million, send us your bargain buys. Who should we go in? Ross McCormack? I don't know. Who's the player that we go for? Like we need somebody. We need somebody who's going to put the ball in the back of the net. And I'd take a player that's not going to do a lot of running, but will just bang in goals consistently. And I rue the day that Chelsea chose to sign Romelu Lukaku over Haaland. Let's kind of. I want to have a look before towards this piece of news. So Cole Palmer joined Chelsea on deadline day for 42.5 million. I didn't see this coming. I didn't think this was going to happen. I think Temba, you alluded to it in the last podcast that Chelsea been rumored to for like a number 10 and a right winger style player is able to do that hybrid role. Was this good business for Chelsea? Because I personally didn't expect us to buy him from Manchester City, and I didn't think Manchester City would sell him.
Yeah, so this comes from a link with Joe Shields, I believe. I think he was at Manchester City at one point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was more driven by him to sort of look for the target, and clearly identified Cole Palmer. I didn't think Man City would sell, but clearly they bought Nunez for 45, 50 million, something
Yeah,
like
about
that.
that roughly. Yeah.
So for them, it kind of made sense, I suppose, to buy one and sell one at the same time. Um, yeah, a bit out of the blue. Again, another young player who needs minutes. I believe needs to
Yeah.
start games. So what happens really? Um, it's
I
sort
mean,
of hard. What do you do?
yeah, I mean, based on let's talk about it specifically, like Cole Palmer. Based on what you saw in the very brief time that he was in a Chelsea shirt at Stamford Bridge, I believe, full disclosure, I was only able to watch the first half, and I only watched the highlights of the second half because I was driving to a wedding. But I believe that when he came on, he was a lot more direct and created a lot of chances. I looked at some of the stats; he had more forward passes than Enzo Fernandez did all game, and he was only on the pitch for 30 minutes, 28 minutes, or something like that. So it's shown he's been given a clear directive, like go out. Is this a player, like especially with Nkuku injured, do we bring him in and say, you know what, put him in the number 10 position? We need an out and out number 10 that's going to try and create those chances and feed those ball throughs to the wingers and to the strikers. But I personally think it's a good bit of business. Like we're taking a player from it's hard to say Manchester City are a right a rival or a competitor right now because it feels I feel so sad saying it that we're just not near that level at all. Like we're nowhere near it. I don't think many clubs are there, but to get a player of that caliber is fantastic, isn't it? And I hope it does very much work out for Cole Palmer. But it's another young player. It's an area that we don't really need reinforcements. Really,
Yeah.
like we need more experience. We need somebody that's got that's going to teach these. I say kids. It's very condescending. These are men, but like these young players to come in and play effectively as much as they can. But hopefully, is this a case of us having to eat humble pie in the short term? But for long-term success, do you think could we be talking about this on this podcast in 3 years' times? Like we've got back-to-back titles, oh, we've done well in that, we won the Champions League again. Do you potentially see that happen, or do you think this is going to be a long transitional phase?
Um, yeah, that's a very good question. I think I alluded to the fact that we maybe should have gotten someone like in Hazard for the short term. I know obviously that wouldn't have
Mm.
been popular, but I mean, just to someone with a bit of experience, good take on ability. But I suppose it's up to him because at the end of the day, would he really want to come back to Chelsea? Does he feel like the level is there? Is he really? I don't think he's a Pochettino type player, but this is just my scenario. I would have
Mm.
thought that would have made sense. And I saw that Chelsea adopted an under 25 policy. So
Yes, I
again,
think. Well, yeah, they did. I don't know if did you see the fact that James Maddison was on the radar, and the reason why we didn't sell him, didn't buy him, is because he's 26, and how that's not working out for us. And he is the player, the number 10 kind of role that we need, and now he's absolutely doing crazy business for Tottenham currently at the moment. But yeah,
yeah,
the under 25 scenario is just, you need experience. You just do. You just do.
yeah, and that's the thing. When you see these young players coming off the bench to come rescue the game, is that really is Pochettino's fault more than I'd say the experience? Because if you're bringing off a player on the bench, someone like Mudryk, I think he lacks a lot in tactical understanding and maybe phases of the game where he needs to brush up on his game. So why would you bring him on for 10 minutes? He's not a sort of player you want to be rushing about. He's the sort of player who needs coaching and needs to feel the game before coming on. So
Yeah,
I mean, he needs to feel the game in terms of like a long period of time. When you bring him on like that, I think he's more prone to mistakes and he's just going to do silly things like he did, where he tried a short pass and gave Nottingham Forest a very good counter attack, and they nearly scored off of it. So yeah,
yeah,
I think he looked so good in preseason again. So I didn't understand why he just completely hasn't been playing at all. I know he's
yeah.
had an injury. What, two
Just
games ago was it?
yeah, like a
Yeah,
mild knock. But again, I'm not seeing enough from him to warrant that kind of thing. Like to say, okay, we need you to start because you're tactically inept. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
To me, that doesn't sound right in the grand scheme of things. Like because I can't bring you on, and you can't be trusted to come on with 20 minutes and run at tired legs. It's crazy to think. Like yeah, you need to go on at that point. But I was surprised. It's just a shame that he couldn't start against Wimbledon because that would have been the opportunity for him to do so. But I don't know when is he going to get this chance again? Really, like, is it going to be Bournemouth away? Because I can't see it. I can very much see Mudryk being relegated to. I have a feeling at the end of this season he'll probably be sent out on loan. I do, but to kind of build his confidence up. We'll see if I'm right about that scenario. But I don't see a player, a game changing player currently at the moment, which is a shame. Um, because I'd like to see a game changing player at the moment. But let me move. Let's move it. Like, have the owners actually spent? Have they spent wisely, or is it still very much, especially in this window, or has it still been very, very kind of haphazard and kind of a not very measured approach to kind of signing players and building a team? Because this is a whole new team from when we won the Champions League. Let's face it, there's only one player surviving from that.
two.
Chilwell. Sorry, Chilwell and Silva. Sorry.
Yeah, but yeah, I think the thing is right now it's kind of a huge issue because I think the most important thing is for Chelsea to do well on the pitch for us to do well commercially. I think it's
Yeah,
very, very hard for us to not qualify for Europe. Now, what we've done so far is a very much a big scattergun approach. We've bought a lot of players to send out on loan. We've invested a lot in young players. Washington,
yeah,
Angelo, Morera at Leon, uh, even the players we bought in Cole Palmer, obviously Mudryk, Enzo, Caicedo,
yeah.
uh, let me
Lavia.
think who else, Lavia. So we've bought in a lot of young players, and we've bought in a manager who's experienced with with playing with young players a
Yeah,
lot and developing them. The problem is now we're not doing very well. So how do you how do you navigate this? Like, where do you go from this point to getting us to win again?
yeah.
Is it as simple as going to a back four and seeing how we do, I don't think it's that simple. I still don't think there is enough goals in this team. That's the problem. And a lot of people I've seen have been saying, "Oh, we can still finish top four, top five with this team." I don't know. I think you still need to spend money on this team. I don't think Jackson and Brozier is enough as a as a as a as a striker and a backup striker to be able to get you the amount of goals you need. I don't think Sterling and Mudryk or Cole Palmer is sufficient enough. Maybe when Nkunku comes back, that might change. And we know,
Yeah.
yeah, you could go on a run of 10, 15 games, and I think Europe is still achievable. But it's about us from right now to maybe the end of maybe December, staying in touch with that top four or top six, just not really drifting off and bringing that bad form what we did last season, where we lost one game, then we lost the next, then we lost the next, and we
Yeah.
just fell into that trap of not believing in ourselves. So I think, let me throw that question to you: how do you turn this around? What do you
Uh,
do?
s-
You think the best solution is?
Speaking as a novice football manager player that will just throw money at the whole situation, um,
And
I
where would
want
you
to.
have spent more money as well? That's the other question.
It's a striker. It just is. Like it's a striker. I think that we've kind of got we've kind of I guess we've shored up the goalkeeper position, or we've just given us a new. There wasn't very many players. There wasn't very many fans that were confident in the Kepa Mendy combination. Let's face it. So we've got a new combination. It'll be interesting to see how they work out. It's still relatively early days. It's hard to kind of gauge it when he hasn't been completely peppered with shots. I don't think he was at fault for the Nottingham Forest goal. There's not much you could have really done about that. It's just a counter attack, and it happened. I, I would like to see Poch just change his mind mid game, and I think there's too many managers. I don't think this is just stuck specifically to Pochettino or some anybody that was coming in and being managing Chelsea, but just hold your hands up and just say that I've got this wrong, and they just change it. They throw the script out. They start again at half time. It's like no. Remember when Jose Mourinho would pull players after 30 minutes because it wasn't working? Like I'm not
Mm.
saying bring back Jose Mourinho, Tim. I know that would not be make you the happiest person in the world, but a manager that isn't afraid to do that and just say, "Look, I've messed up. This is my fault. I need to pull this player off." Like I think was it Gary Cahill he pulled off or somebody like that in one of the games after 30 minutes, and he just put
Yeah.
like he changed the system completely. It was like this isn't working. We need to do that. But three at the back just isn't
Oh,
working. It really isn't working. It needs to move. It needs to move to an out and out four at the back. And I'd like to see the opportunity to say, this is an established four at the back. We're going to play these games with this four at the back and put another attacker on. Because if you've got Caicedo there, you can still allow for Gusto to bomb forward, to throw those crosses into the box, Chilwell to bomb forward and throw those crosses in the box. Because you have Caicedo to protect the back two. You have them to protect, Silver if he's playing because he doesn't have the legs as he once used to, but he's got the brains. Do you know what I mean? And I'd like to see a manager I like to see Pochettino do that and just experiment and try that out in games because at the end of the day, we've got nothing to lose. We really don't have anything to lose. Like we're not, we're mid-table currently at the moment, and we're in 12th, the same position that we were this time last year. Not this time last year, but this time 6 months ago.
yeah, yeah, and it's something you said right there that I want to allude on. Is Caicedo sort of slotting as the third centre back? I thought that's what more we would see of, not an actual centre back playing left back, because we know Chilwell likes to go forward. We
Yeah,
know Enzo would probably like to go forward or a little bit more advanced, and maybe Gallagher isn't the ideal third midfielder you want. I don't know if Pochettino wants him to start every game. I'm not quite sure. Maybe if Nkunku is that number 10, Enzo and Caicedo are the two sort of sitters, and uh, maybe you put another winger out wide and Sterling, and then Jackson up front. Maybe that was the ideal plan, but in terms of the way like you say, the way we attack, we've only got really what one or two players attacking the box, and it's an
yeah.
issue. We've talked about
Every
it.
time, every
It's
time. Enzo Fernandez doesn't need to be in the 18-yard box ever. Really, he's he's the player that needs to be on the edge of the box on the D, like ready to collect the ball and try and get the shot off. He needs to be a better player. He is playing much better than he was last season,
Yeah,
because been given license to bomb forward. And I get the kind of, he reminds me a little bit of Fabregas, like
yeah.
maybe a bit more mobile than Fabregas. Um, but he doesn't have the passing ability as Fabregas does, but as close enough as you can get to it. But he can't be that player in there. We need a number 10. I like Gallagher. He does a lot defensively, and I'll throw my hands up here. Like Gallagher has been better than he was last season in these few games.
100%. Yeah.
He's been much better, and I think you need to give credit when credit is due. But I don't think Gallagher is the person that he wants to be playing that position. Like he's not playing as an out and out kind of number 10. Like when you picture the squad, and I think was it Sterling that was supposed to be on the right, and then was it Gallagher that was playing on the left? Was he
He's
cutting in
left
on the
of the
left?
central midfield sort of thing.
Left the central midfield. I don't. Yeah, no. I think Gallagher is a good squad player. I think he's a good squad player with potential. I don't think he's quite reaching it, but he's playing better. But I just getting a bit. I'm getting fed up of watching the same game week in week out. Do you know what I mean? Because we send the messages in the group chat, it's like we're dominating possession. We're creating chances, and these aren't just half chances; they're just not being put away. And too many. I just want a manager to say, do you know what? Just get into the 6 yard box. Just don't even bother playing right. I just want you to just get into the 6 yard box every single time. Doesn't matter what you do. And I think there's a famous. Was it? I don't know if you've like listened to like the Peter Crouch podcast or anything like that.
Yeah.
And he says that I'm not the fastest. I was never the most technically brilliant. I wasn't the best dribbler. Yes, I was tall, but I said the only way I've got a good chance of scoring goals is if I'm in the 6 yard box, if I'm in the penalty spot in around that area, and I need to be in that as a striker. And that's all he did. He said, like, it doesn't matter how tired I am, I made sure I ran back and I ran into that box and I was there available. And that's how he scored a lot of his goals. I'm not saying we should sign Peter Crouch up, but somebody with that mentality is like, I need to be in the box because I need to put I need to put the ball in the back of the net. And it would be so nice to see like players clicking and like you currently got Raheem Sterling playing on good form, but he's making these passes into the box, but nobody's there to put them away. It's just painful seeing that same situation week in week out, regardless of opposition. We still play well, and yet we still drew with Liverpool, but we lose to Forest. That's what I don't understand. That's what I struggle with. Why
Yeah,
isn't
and I
Liverpool
think
like pulling our pants down?
yeah, and I think it's a thing of patience as well because if you, like you say, a lot of players may not have the best start. Like I don't know if you remember when Heung-min Son first came to the Premier League. He was
Mm,
really terrible for Spurs. Like he fans were really on his back, and he after a few run of games he started to turn things around, and what a brilliant signing he's turned out to be for Tottenham. Same as Vinicius for Real Madrid. He looked very
mm,
dodgy when he first came to Real Madrid, and then obviously he exploded on. So it shows you like sometimes even Martinelli, like another one, not very
mm,
clean player, had a bit of moments where you could see raw pace but no sort of close control or ability to sort of consistently do it. Now he's doing it week in week out after being trusted so
mm.
much, and it's a thing of patience at Chelsea. I suppose it kind of alludes to my next question: is you know do we need to be more patient as fans, or are the owners kind of the reason? The money spent plus the owners talking about us being a multi-club model, getting back to Europe. I know they haven't directly said that, but the
Mm.
actions show that we are still trying to get back in the top four. We're aiming for Champions League. We want to win every trophy. Is this the reason why we're so maybe not patient with what's going on? As on Saturday, you saw a lot of fans were booing.
Yeah, I think I think as the it's going to sound like I'm going to sound like such an old man here, but because as the world's changed, like it's a lot easier to kind of like get the banter side of things from other fans. You know what I mean? Like you can get a WhatsApp message from your pal like straight away. So I got a message from somebody I work with who's a Forest fan, and straight away sent it across to me at 5:10 saying, "Oh, I saw Forest won." It's like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. On a Saturday on to my work thing, I was like, appreciate that. But I think Chelsea fans, we have been absolutely spoilt rotten for the last 20 years. We have, like, other than
Oh,
a few kind
100%.
of terrible seasons, that we had last season, and then we had the season before when we didn't make Europe. We've had a lot of success. Like, we were a cup team towards like the last to the late 90s. And then Abramovich coming in and spending that money and spending the money. But we're used to an owner coming in, spending money and getting results, and not being afraid to like get rid of managers and like get rid of players, and if it's not working out, chop and change to get what we need to try and win. But now I think we've got a different route. Yes, we've invested a lot of money. The thing that fans, I think a lot of fans struggle with, is because the vast sums are so much higher than what we were spending. Even with like the rate of inflation, it's so much higher that it's not getting the same reward, and that's the
Yeah,
infuriating thing for a lot of fans. Um, and we do need to be patient. I mean, look at Arsenal, for example. Arsenal can make big, massive signings like for the longest time because they built the stadiums. They had to kind of make do, and they had, let's face it, for 10 years they were dreadful. Arsenal were like the squad weren't that strong. They weren't that exciting to watch, really. They were just Arsenal trying to pass the ball in the back of the net, but they weren't really doing anything with it. Um, and I'll just lose my train of thought here. But they were patient, and look at Arsenal now. Do you know what I mean? They've paid off the stadium. They're able to invest money in the team. They've got long term. They've got Martinelli, Saka. They brought the younger players in, and they're reaping the benefits of that now. They bought Saliba, sent Saliba out on loan for a season. Um, we do need to be patient. It's a question of how everyone's got different levels of patience. I'm quite a patient person when it comes to this, like, but it is frustrating, like week in, week out to the same thing. Like, you know, if you keep doing the same things, it's never going to change, is it?
yeah,
The only thing that's
yeah,
going to make that change is to make that change. And we do need to be patient. And I think it's like, especially in this day, this day and age, people are like that, and they demand success here and now. Like, they demand it. You've invested £1 billion for 3 transfer windows. Why haven't you won the Champions League? Why aren't you, unbeaten in these many games? Because clubs around us have got better. We got that money 20 years ago when nobody else had that level of money. Maybe the closest person would have been Manchester United at that time, able to put, 30 million on Rio Ferdinand, which is a vast sum of money at that time.
yeah.
They were able to do so. They were able to make those. And now all clubs are. Look at clubs like Aston Villa, and they're able to
Newcastle.
spend. Newcastle, they're able to put 40, 50, 60 million pound a player down on a player that probably wouldn't have gone to that club 10 years ago. No disrespect to these clubs, but they probably wouldn't have gone to these clubs 10, 15 years ago, because they just wouldn't, because it's not an attractive prospect. But now they can earn vast sums of money, mid 150,000 a week, playing for these clubs, and they're reaping the benefits of it. All these clubs around us have caught up, but we just haven't adjusted to that just yet. And I think we do need to be patient. And I try and tell myself that when I'm watching these games. I really do, because it's a process. But how long is this process going to take?
Yeah. So again, so my next question is: when you look at teams like Brighton, who maybe haven't spent a lot of money, playing brilliant football, you see Billy
Hmm.
Gilmore, one of our own, doing very, very well there. And they seem to have the right scouting network where they find these managers, tactics, and I don't know, bargains that nobody else seems to have. It makes you wonder with all this new recruitment that Chelsea have done, with all these young players they've over signed, probably overpricedly signed, but they've
Yeah.
decided to invest in them now before they balloon up to maybe 80, 90 million pound players in the
Mm.
future. What do you do? What do you do with these players now? What because you haven't got your Portuguese club yet sorted. You've got
Yeah.
your Strasbourg. I think we've already reached our limit on players we can send on loan there. I'm not sure. I think maybe we have one
We've
one
only
more.
sent
Something like that.
one. Yeah, we've
Yeah,
only sent one, and it's Angelo at the moment. But I think what the advantage that Brighton had is they had that network in place before they came up to the Premier League. So that
yeah,
network was in place. So they're able to do it with less eyes on them. So they kind of flew under the radar for a little bit. I mean, I'd have to go. I mean, I might just be saying that. I would have to do my research and check the fact, like, where Brighton were finishing in the Championship, like were they finishing consistently just outside the playoffs, and were they steadily increasing the how well that they were doing. but with these players, I just don't know. I just think there needs to be an element. There needs to be a lot of patience to it because they are raw players. They are. The problem is we've got these raw players and Wesley Fofana. I think he was a good purchase when we got him, but he's been ruled out for the season again.
Yeah.
It's like, and it could just go wrong. It really can. Touch wood, something doesn't happen, but a player at training could turn funny on their knee, and that's it. Look at Callum Hudson-Odoi tearing it up. Bayern Munich wanted to buy him, and we gave him a contract 150,000 a week, and we turned him down. Like Callum Hudson-Odoi, I think they offered something like 60 million for him or 50 million, something crazy,
70
stupid
million with
levels
a
of
loan.
money.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So that amount of money, and then he's gone to Nottingham Forest now for 5 million because he
Yeah.
did his Achilles, and he's just not really been the same player ever since. Because I think, did you say that he's not? He's kind of like scared now to, not scared, but he had to see a psychologist about running at full pace because he was worried he was going to do it again.
Yeah.
Am I
Yeah.
right in thinking that?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'll throw that question back to you because how patient can you be whilst in this kind of very modern age? We need instant gratification. Everything's at the palm of our hands. Like we if we want knowledge, it's very easy to get that knowledge. We can just type it into Google and we get that information there and then. Like, how patient do we need to be, and what is a justifiable level of patience in this day and age? Because last season tested a lot of fans' patience.
See, I'm more on the side of actually you have a right to be annoyed and pissed off. Excuse my French, but the owners have spent £1 billion at the end of the day. They've sort of made a stance of we want to achieve success at the end of the day. You don't spend that much money in such a short time unless you're looking to get instant success. I think if
Yeah.
this was a 3-4 year period, we would be more okay maybe with you know maybe slowly getting back up the table. But you spent this in what, relatively 18 months or 12? No, 12 months, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah,
12 months.
12
Yeah,
months.
yeah, 12 months. So no football club spends that amount of money unless they really want to achieve some form of success and return on that money, of course. Unless we want to be selling players every single summer, which I don't see how that's going to happen if we're not doing well on the pitch anyway. So we have to win. So my point is that I think fans have the right to be upset from what they're seeing on the pitch at the moment. Last season was a disgrace. Most of those players didn't care about playing for Chelsea anymore. We saw interviews and reports of Reece James said that he admitted that some players didn't seem like they wanted to be there. It was hard to,
Yeah.
the dressing room didn't seem connected. So yeah, we can wipe off last season in the terms of, okay, players are not there anymore, but can we go again this season and use the same excuse? No. Can we go this
No.
season again and say, oh, well, this is our fourth manager under this new ownership and still getting the same results, really? Although Tuchel, I think, was unfairly sacked, as most would agree. But
Yeah.
again, how many mistakes can you make till the blame sort of change? I know a lot of people will say, well, it's Pochettino causing his own problems, but how much do we really know this is Pochettino's squad? I know people say, oh, Pochettino said he wanted these players, whatever, but he's employed by
But
the
you
football
have to
club.
you have
He's
to say
going
that
to say that. He's
it's
going to say that.
it's media. He's not going to say, oh, I didn't want him, because that just doesn't look good, is he? Like,
Well,
you
to be
can click.
fair, although there has been reports saying that there were certain players that Chelsea were after, and he personally didn't approve of. I think João Felix was one,
Yeah.
Ugarte was another one, Vlahovic was definitely another one. So in that sense, maybe he. Oh, goodness sake! 1 second, let me just close the window.
You- Being broken into.
That's yeah. It's just the school across the road, but yeah. In terms of Pochettino, I don't know how much we could really truly blame him for everything that's going wrong. I think it is a split of like 70% is his fault, but 30% he's not been helped with injuries, recruitment. I don't think he can help those factors in terms of, Jackson's the only striker he can really play. Who else has he got? Washington on the bench.
Yeah.
Broja's been injured. And then again, like the attacking options are really young players, but he is causing his own problems. You know, with this not fluid formation,
Yeah.
how patient can we be? Does he have 10 games left? Do fans maybe, start a revolt and start booing? Because we've seen when things got bad at the bridge, they decided to sack Graham Potter. Does it get to a stage of that if we lose 3 or 4 more games?
Yeah, but to be fair, with the sacking of Graham Potter was like in the grand scheme of things was long overdue. It was. I don't think he would have got
Yeah,
the length of time he was given under the previous ownership. He wouldn't have had that. I just think, yeah, you do make a valid point. We need to be patient. We need to be patient. In the fact, we do have 10 injuries in the first team. I know Marcus Bettinelli doesn't really count, but he's a first team player. Temba's dropped out with audio only, so I'll just keep talking. You're just looking at my lovely, lovely face. But I know we got those injuries into that scenario currently at the moment, and we need to factor that in, don't we, Tim? Because once those injuries come back in, he's got a full squad to play around with. He might switch to the 4-2-3-1. He might not be confident in the players right now to play in that 4-2-3-1. It's just I'm curious to see how we line up against with Bournemouth, and we'll go from there. Temba's completely dropped out now, from what I can see. So it's just going to be me for the next 9 minutes. So, chat, if you are watching this, I can see there's some people watching us now. Please put some stuff in so I can talk about this thing. Talk about Chelsea for the next 10 minutes or so. Let's just have a look. We will need to look forward to things like Chelsea versus Bournemouth. Bournemouth famously a bogey team in this scenario for us. We did pick up the win, the only win of Frank Lampard's career at the back end of last season, where I think we won the game 2-1. Somebody will probably correct me in the chat. But we'll talk about this. I would love to see in this scenario that we exercise the demons, but the chances are when it comes to these games, we just think what's going to happen is Luis Sinestera, it's signed from Leeds on loan, is just going to all of a sudden pop in 2 goals, and then Dominic Solanke is going to score, and then we're going to lose 3-0. Like, I used to go into those games fully just expecting us to win, but now I watch these games in dread of what the actual thing's going to be. By all means, in the chat, feel free to send your score predictions through, what you think it's going to be. That would be absolutely fantastic if you can do so, because it's just me talking to myself in a room in Birmingham right now whilst I wait for Timber to rejoin, because I don't know what has happened. But yeah, it's crazy to think what's going to happen in this scenario. Yeah, I don't think Timber's going to make it back. I really don't. Let's have a look. Nope, he's not going to make it back. Anyway, okay. Well, I appreciate you all for joining us at the We Talk Chelsea podcast. We usually try and do this for an hour or so, but obviously Temba's having technical difficulties, and it can't just be me that does so. So we greatly appreciate you watching us on YouTube and on TKS TV. If you can do, please make sure you can help us hit those 100 subscribers. We'd really, really love to get to that mark, so we can create your own little our own URL. So if you do have liked this or watched this previously before, please do so. We really, really appreciate that. We'll be back next week at 9:30 p.m. Where we will review Chelsea players international break. Charlie will be back from his excursion. I think he's on a scouting trip in Eastern Europe, but we'll be back next week. Take care. Bye bye.